Alright everybody, this is Vitasoy and I'm here to help you guys with FM and hopefully provide tips and tricks so you guys can improve your game. So this first ever um, rendition of this will be looking at GOM's Royal AM save in South Africa, and I'll just be going through it and pointing out some things that I think that maybe players are getting wrong or maybe can be improved upon. So firstly, I'd like to look over the tactics because I honestly this is probably the most important part of FM. Having a good tactic will never fail you even if you have a bad squad, and certainly in this squad the players aren't the best in the world, but I think if you can sort of use the player roles and what they're best at, it would greatly benefit you. So firstly, before I look over the tactics, I would go to the squad screen and then sort the players by their ability to see who is probably our best player, even though it's the assistants. And then I look at potential to see, okay, who has the most potential, who would be the next great thing. So I would also try to play them as much as I can. Another thing I'd look at is the positions. So this team is loaded with defenders, and it looks like wingers so wingers, center backs, not many strikers. So I'd probably look for a formation that has incorporating some. Basically, I'd look at a 5-back with a bunch of wingers. So if I create a new tactic, I'd look at probably something like a 5-3, 5 at the back with a flat midfield 2-3 with a DM or a CM. Depends. I didn't take a great look, but depending on the midfielders, and then with 2 wingers because I noticed a bunch of wingers. So that would be my first tip. Secondly, I would never ever just use a tactic that the game creates for me. So I just did that to sort of demonstrate how the structure would be. I'd probably run with a DM and a CM because I noticed there were plenty of defensive midfielders and midfielders who can play attacking midfield. So it's either an inbound structure like this or a flat midfield too. So first, let's go through GOM's tactics. So firstly, he decided to run a 4-3-3. I don't mind this. 4-3-3s are great. I've had success using the 4-3-3. However, the player roles in a 4-3-3, they all have to work as one. What I mean is, if we look at this, the first thing that stands out to me immediately are the wingbacks and wingers. And I've noticed in possession he wants them to overlap. Play for the overlap. So overlap, right? Essentially what it does, it's basically saying to the winger, hey, you gotta wait for your fullback so he can overlap for you to provide him the ball, is essentially what it's saying. And the attacking width on wide. So you have 2 wingers with 2 wingbacks behind them. The wingers are waiting for the wingbacks to overlap them whilst the attacking width is on wide. So here's the tactic board on what the tactic would look like with the wingers on wide, the wingbacks, the center mid on support, the deep lying playmaker on support, the anchorman, and your 2 center backs with the advanced forward. So, when you have your wingers already on the touchline, having your wingback overlap is essentially unnecessary. Also, GOM mentioned that he wanted his tactic to be like something to do with crossing it into the box, which it's not a bad idea, but when you have only one person in the box, and I'll get to his striker choices later, but it's not gonna work. Because crosses in general, what I found is it's better when they are low-driven crosses rather than the floated crosses. That's the first thing. Second thing is, your number 9 is on an island. That is an issue, and in the games, you've noticed that this is the issue. His average positions all immediately indicate what's wrong with the tactic. Firstly, your number 9 is stranded on an island. Second thing is, look at the wings. And look at the space between the fullback and the center back and the cluster in the midfield. So it's hard when they're all clustered together like this, but then to get it to a wide outlet would be hard because they're not on the top touchline per se, but look at the heat map. There's green on the touchline. There's like, and then most of the ball is being kept, or most of their positions are being kept here, because in the build-up, how are they going to get out from this position? They have to pass it between themselves and probably hoof one up to the winger, but that's not a good ball to be playing. So the spacing is messed up. So that is what's wrong with this tactic. Also, the in possession screen, he also put in to pass into space, and I've noticed even Gom was complaining that the players are just kicking it to nobody. But if you look at it, it says it instructs players to look to make passes into open spaces for their teammates to run onto. I saw his keeper, I saw his fullback, I saw his midfielder just kick one up, trying to get above their line because pass into space was triggered. It doesn't matter if the player decides to run onto the ball, it just tells the player to look where is an open space, and he just kicks it. He doesn't see if his teammate's gonna run on, he's just gonna kick it. So I don't think I'd ever turn this on. Also, his directness is fine. I think for the tactic he tries to play, being direct, whatever, slightly higher. I don't think directness and tempo is the most impactful thing as of right now with his tactic, but it's also still important on its own, but it's a bit more niche on how to explain it, because it's just personal preference in a sense that what they want to do with the tactic. Secondly, play for set pieces. Essentially what this does, it's basically shoot on sight, but it gives the player license to shoot. I think what this does is tells the player that there are no bad shots. Just take a shot and hopefully get a corner out of it. In transition, the distribute to flanks is a good idea in the sense that you have wide players, but it's kind of hard when you look at what the heat map with 5 players in the middle and only 2 out wide. When you try to focus to play down the wide areas, I think it's just suicide because they'll just get trapped. I like how he has, when possession has been won, you counter. I like that. But what I don't like is this. I don't like when I play, I always have basically my line to high press and much higher. Higher is fine, and always triggering the press. In transition, what I don't like is he doesn't have counter press on. Always have counter press on. No matter what, you have to gegen press. This game, if you pressing is key to winning. In the tactic, when I also first looked at it, when I saw the intensity wasn't like bright red, I'm like, it's not gonna work. A rule of thumb when I make a tactic is it needs to have a high intensity. Basically, you just gotta press. You have to gegen press in this game. Basically, 101 if you're not pressing, you're doing something wrong. Then he switched to this tactic halfway when the first one wasn't working. Now, I don't know if this is any better. So he has an inside forward which will attack the half space and almost run diagonally into the box. But he has a fullback on automatic, and his mentality is on caution. So he's probably going to stay back with the wing back. They're probably both on defend. The most they're going to venture up to is the halfway line. And then it's just four players that might attack because it's a box-to-box midfielder, so he might not even go into the box. A center mid on defend, I've never ever touched this. I don't think I've seen anybody use this. This probably is worse than the other one, because the other one you might get players going up, but this one it's worse. And then what makes this even more terrible is the lower defensive line, low block, dropping off. You have press triggered, but you're never gonna press because you're in such a low block. And a key in this game, you never want to have a low defensive line. You need a high line. You need to, every game when you're playing, you have to act like you're the better team, even if you are not. You have to press. You have to have a high line. Even if your team is much worse than your opponent, what I would do is basically what I do is having your directness up high, your tempo up high, and then you already have counter and counter press on. So you just have to outwork your opponent. That's basically what this game is. You have to have more intensity and press more. So now I'd like to look over his striker choices, his team selection, and why, on top of the tactic that he used, why it would work even less with the players he was using. Firstly, he started off the season using Cupido as a striker. Now, his aim was to cross the ball. But if we take a look, okay, 184 centimeters, 6 feet tall, not bad. Let's look at the jumping reach and heading. He is never going to win a ball, especially against a defender of the same height with way more jumping reach than him. He's never winning the ball. Also, he's probably better on the wing. Even though his crossing and dribbling stats aren't as good, he just has a lot of pace. His finishing is decent, but I'd probably play him as either an inside forward or an advanced forward, but maybe playing him alongside a bigger striker as a target forward to knock the ball down for him, or playing a tactic where you don't rely too much on the crosses. Then he switched to Sele, which it's even worse because he is about 4 inches shorter. He's like 5'8", and his jumping reach is 6. He's never gonna win a ball. And then he swapped around with some wingers. I think this player he used, but then again, 3 jumping reach. You're never winning the ball. Also, during the season, I believe you went to a mentality of my players aren't doing good. It's my players instead of it's my tactic. I think I've noticed it a lot with Takazi because he looks really good as a winger. Left-footed winger, good crossing ability, good dribbling, decent pace. Put him on quickness training plan. I think he'd be great. Running with the ball down the left, it's great. But if we look at the tactical setup and the tactic board, how is he supposed to succeed if he's crossing the ball into a guy who can't win a header, and if he's waiting for his wing back to overlap into nothing, crossing it into nothing? He can't cut in. He's not allowed to cut in, but he would on occasion. But you're basically telling him to stay wide, don't cross the ball into your striker, and hope for the best. So if we look at his stats, I'm even surprised that he had 5 goals. and he only has 3 assists. So that says that there's nobody getting on the end of his crosses. And then I'm just assuming that he gets the 5 goals off of Hail Mary shots. So yeah, I found some micro is pointless. So what I would do when looking at players, I just go to train their roles, train their additional focuses, um, go to training, set as many match practices as I can. I think this might be the default training plan. I don't know if there are any tweaks to it, but I think this is too compact a schedule. And I think if we look at the intensities of each day, yeah, that's really intense. And that would increase the likelihood of injuries. And I mean, just look at how many are injured and just recovering from injuries. So that's one. Two, for staffs, you don't even need to place an advert. Just go into staff search, go into staff roles. For example, if we look at director of football, you see their highlighted knowledge is in, but this is what's important: player ability, potential, and negotiating. So I go into this, filter player ability and negotiating. Obviously, there's not going to be any good directors of football that would want to go to this South African team. But okay, so a guy like this, look, so he has good stats and all of this. Another thing would be during the games, I'd probably do more substitutions, especially when you have higher intensity tactics, you want more fresh legs on. And yeah, that's basically it. So main thing was the issues I covered on were tactics, some insights on training, good ideas with the friendlies, but friendlies are a good sign to see how good your tactic is. Although, sometimes in some saves your tactic is fine, but during the friendlies, the preseasons, you don't win. But if you already have an established tactic, then take that for a grain of salt. But if you look at this, I'd probably jump into a game or two and see how it's working. But yeah, other than that, everything worked. Everything was okay. I think it's more so a mentality issue, where you have to believe in your team to be the best and believe in your players, and then if things go wrong, blame your tactic. That's basically it. So yeah, I'm gonna sign off here. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this helps, and hopefully Gom improves at the game after watching this. So I'll be monitoring his saves for 3 more in-game seasons, and hopefully he gets better results. So yeah, thank you for watching.